right, y'all. I'm a little bit behind. Give me just a moment to get the word out. And like always, we will start whether we get a full chat or not today. Welcome to Kalari's Crafting Chat. And as the title says, we are going to discuss how the right are twisted themselves into pretzels to pretty much downplay this Epstein file predator ring and Trump's ties to it. I've got a lot to try to cover, but let me get the word out. Let's test sound here really quick too. Let's see. We'll do this. Always a classic. Run DMC is tricky. Let's get the word out here. Do a quick grab. Oh, I'm going to be honest, y'all. I almost did not do this today because I'm just not feeling it. This is a lot of triggering stuff lately, and I'm trying to navigate it best I can without getting upset because as a woman, I'm used to the fact that people don't take crimes against minors, especially young girls, seriously. And watching people like Megan Kelly, which I know the new joke is she's Megan R. Kelly, but the seriousness about how these people are bending themselves out of shape to cover for these predators is sickening. And I'm already over it. I'm over the fact that we can have people who are more than willing to say things like, well, 15-year-olds don't look like 15-year-olds. And as somebody who had to deal with the realness of having adults that watch me grow up, watch me go from diapers to teenage years, say things like, you don't have a child's body, shit like that sticks with you. And there are so many people when I wrote on social media about stuff like that that shared their own ordeals. Some as young as 5, others who, like myself, went through the change, as we call it, not menopause, but the other stuff that people think is ill gross, but is literally a natural biological function for women, shared how young they were. I personally was 11 years old when it started for me, and I'm still going through it. And it feels like the whole idea that the moment we could do that, that we become women, is sick. And I said it in a short on social media, and I mean it. It's because our society has this weird, twisted notion of what purity is. And there are sick, sick men that think the younger or the fresher, the better. And then led to this ring, led by Jeffrey Epstein, full of high profile people who are disgusting, including the sitting predator in chief, who is now trying to act like he's calling for an investigation. But just the 20,000 emails that have been released by the House is enough for me to know that Trump, even if he allegedly didn't have his hands directly on kids, which is plausible deniability right now because we don't have the files released yet, but he knew. And he helped funnel predators through Mar-a-Lago. These emails prove that. And, of course, that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were both disgusting human beings. And he is still letting that woman have preferential treatment. Well, we're going to get to that. Today's model is Gaz from Invader Zim. I started rewatching Invader Zim with Greg. It has been a really fun time. I originally was going to work on one of the kiddos' Christmas presents, but getting supports off stuff is one of the things that I am still winging in 3D printing. And the thing with Gaz is, because of the size of her head, I had to make a base for her, because without it, she was not standing up on these tiny little legs. So we're going to paint gas. I'm going to start off with an anonymous video because, like I said, this whole thing is triggering for any of us who survived childhood SA, childhood things that were creepy. Like, I've had things happen to me that I still hold in because who cares at this point? There are so many people that look away from grown men preying on young girls that it just doesn't even feel right trying to share, because I know for those that go through it, who have gone through it, they understand and believe. But watching so many people, especially people on the right, look away from this obvious evil, I don't feel right even unpacking some of the disgusting stuff that I had to survive just because I happened to be born as a female. So we're going to get this anonymous video started, fired off, and then we are going to thank you, Red Baron. It was rough because between just not feeling all that great today and then having this continuous triggering stuff come out about these awful men in this predator ring, and how Trump is now trying to get ahead of it by pretending that he's going to open up an investigation. You ran your whole campaign saying you were going to release these files until your goons told you how bad it was, how deeply tied you were to it. Maybe the dementia has Donald thinking that he isn't uh, directly involved, but just the emails have been released show that's not the truth. So we're going to get this video fired up with Anonymous. I'm going to talk about it while painting gas. And like I said, this is a very triggering topic for me. But I feel like hearing it from the voice of somebody who has survived being assaulted that young, and the disgust I feel for anybody, especially Megyn Kelly, making excuses for predators like this, I think it does a disservice if we stay completely silent. I don't want to overshare some of the shit I went through, but know that I stand with all victims because we have to survive this every day. We don't get times out. It is a life sentence for us. But let me get this fired off, start painting gas so I can get back into a calmer place, because social media has been really toxic with people who keep excusing awful. And I have no love lost for any of these disgusting people.
Of kings, we do not worship predators. We do not look away when the powerful bury their secrets under 20,000 emails and decades of silence. Tonight, we walk straight into the heart of a story Donald Trump and his inner circle hoped would never reach the public. A story drawn not from rumor, but from messages, correspondence, and digital footprints left behind in Jeffrey Epstein's trove.
And if you don't want to believe it because it's just anonymous or my ass showing this, you can go to the House of Representatives official webpage. They have released several documents about this issue. This is not just people making stuff up like the right wants you to believe. Grab you really quick because I've got a couple of points that I missed on this. And I've got Bunnicus to show off later too. Well, what I've got done so far, I still got to do some touching up with him. Either way, it's just crazy to me that there are people still trying to act like this isn't what's going on.
Trove of more than 20,000 emails obtained by the House Oversight Committee. These emails reveal a web of conversations, perceptions, complaints, insults, political strategizing, and descriptions that shed light on how Epstein and people around him viewed Donald Trump, interacted with him, and talked about him. Some of these emails have gone viral, but the majority remain largely unknown to the public. And when you read them, when you follow the threads one by one, the shape of the story becomes clearer, deeper, and far more troubling than anything in yesterday's headlines. You've already seen the email where Epstein writes to Ghislaine Maxwell back in April 2011, referring to Trump as the dog that isn't barking, noting that a victim spent hours with Trump at Epstein's house, and saying that Trump has never been mentioned by investigators.
Yeah, because a lot of people were covering it up because they wanted access to his power. Exactly, Red Baron. I agree with that. And that's why I've been featuring them most part, because our mainstream media is still acting like they're waking up to this. But assholes like Michael Wolff, who tried to frame other stuff to distract from this, Those 20,000 emails show it wasn't just Trump trying to cover his ass, too. And journalism should be ashamed of itself for condoning Michael Wolff's actions.
Maxwell replies that she has been thinking about it. That alone would dominate any news cycle. But it is only one tile in a mosaic of conversations that stretch from 2009 all the way through Trump's first term in office. I went through every single email, all 20,000. And as you follow the timestamps, read the names, and cross-reference the events, the image that emerges is of Jeffrey Epstein observing Trump, commenting on Trump, sometimes mocking him, sometimes advising people around him, sometimes describing interactions he claims to know about, and sometimes positioning himself as someone who understands the psychological vulnerabilities of the 45th president. One early email from 2015 shows Epstein writing to journalist Landon Thomas Jr., describing Trump walking almost straight into a glass door while focused on young women swimming in the pool. Epstein jokes about Trump leaving his nose print on the glass. It's a disturbing voyeuristic detail, but it sets a tone Epstein portraying Trump as fixated, careless, and impulsive. The sort of private anecdote people only share with someone they believe will understand exactly what they mean. Other messages escalate. Epstein writes to former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers saying he has met bad people in his life, but none as bad as Trump, adding that Trump has not one decent cell in his body, and calling him even grosser in person. These are Epstein's words recorded in private emails, not public statements. Whatever their motivation, they show the perception Epstein claimed to hold about Trump behind closed doors. Then there are the geopolitical messages, the ones that caught my attention immediately. In June 2018, just days before the Helsinki summit between Trump and Vladimir Putin, Epstein emails Torbjørn Jagland, former Prime Minister of Norway. Epstein writes that Putin should hear from Sergei Lavrov, and that Lavrov can get insight on Trump from him. Jagland replies that he will meet Lavrov's assistant on Monday and will suggest it. The tone of the exchange is casual, even
if it's casual. So many of us went on the record saying that Trump was compromised. We got shouted down by MAGA. We got called hyperbolic by people who called themselves progressive. People did not want to believe this went as deep as it did. People didn't want to believe that this could be as bad as it was. And we kept warning you that it was bad, that this man had serious ties to a predatory ring, that Jeffrey Epstein was allowed to call him, literally call him at the White House in the middle of the night. But then Trump, being Trump is the way he is, tried to play it off like he didn't have any ties to Epstein, barely knew the guy, what he said. And the evidence proves that's a lie. He lies so much, and these emails prove it.
Friendly with Jagland, thanking Epstein for a lovely evening. Epstein replies that Trump must be seen to get something, describing Trump's psychological need for a win, or at least the appearance of one. Whether these messages reflect true influence or exaggerated self-importance, their content is undeniable. They show Epstein discussing Trump with high-level political figures, positioning himself as someone who studies Trump's ego and behavior, and portraying himself as a conduit of insight into how...
He's not a genius. Anybody who's even lived in New York, or like me, lived in New York most of my young life, then moved to Florida and kept dealing with that motherfucker, knows he's a dumb crumb-bum narcissist. You don't even have to have a PhD in psychology. You could just be crazy like I am and know that Trump needs validation constantly. And when he doesn't get validation, he lashes out like a toddler.
How Trump operates. These emails exist. They have timestamps. They have senders and recipients. And reading them together paints a picture that Trump's inner circle never wanted public. But the emails go deeper still. There's Epstein conversing with individuals tied to modeling networks, including Jean Leblanc, who later died under circumstances many observers noted as strangely parallel to Epstein's own. They talk about bringing a Burmese singer to the U.S., calling her very pretty, mentioning fresh promotional angles around Obama's visit to Myanmar. These exchanges sit uncomfortably in the context of what has long been reported about Epstein's social network. There's Epstein discussing messaging strategies with people who were connected to Trump's political world. Emails suggest he offered opinions on how lawyers should attack Christine Blasey Ford's memory during the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation hearings. The tone of these...
Which that troubles me so much because it took so much courage for Miss Ford to come forward during that farce of a confirmation hearing where the I like beer guy cried and whined and acted so unprofessional and should not have been allowed to sit on our SCOTUS. But to know that Epstein and others were planning to try to discredit her is sick. And it's not surprising because there's so many other things like the Dylan Farrow thing. I don't understand people's obsession with Woody Allen, honestly. As a New Yorker, I hated his movies. There, I said it. It's like you got, it was in your face everywhere because he's supposed to be this golden guy from New York City. But anybody who can look past the fact that he literally married a child that he helped raise with Mia Farrow, and he is credibly accused by his other adopted child with Mia Farrow of being disgusting. I never understood people's obsession with that. And there is a correspondence between Michael Wolff and Jeffrey Epstein trying to not only cover what happened to Dylan Farrow with another salacious thing about the Clintons, which once again, this plays into what I said in the first two Bonnet Chronicles about the Epstein files. If Trump had anything on the Clintons, he would have ran with that. And now there's a disgusting rumor saying that he gave Bill Clinton a certain sexual act, which I don't believe. And those of you who follow me running with that, I'm sorry. I'm not even going to interact with you anymore because that's weird. It's just like the Pizzagate shit they tried to run back in the day with no proof. Don't run with unfounded rumors. I'm just so sick of this. It's skeevy. The whole thing is so skeevy. And people just love it because it's like a demented soap opera instead of a stable, functioning society we should be in. It's sickening.
These messages shows Epstein inserting himself into political conversations, pointing out vulnerabilities, suggesting rhetorical strategies, and evaluating how Trump's team might handle backlash. Then come the messages where Epstein describes Trump's personality and predictability. He tells Larry Summers that Trump is so dumb he will blame everyone around him, predicting chaos in the White House. He says Jared Kushner and Gary Cohn will be protected, but others will fall. Years later, insiders would confirm Trump's pattern of infighting, paranoia, and blame-shifting behavior.
He had such a revolving door of people in his first term, it wasn't even funny. You had to keep a scorecard for anybody he labeled a betrayer because they couldn't keep covering up all of the corruption. And he led rise to idiot wannabe celebs like Scaramucci and Omarosa and Sessions and so many others that he backed at first, then questioned their loyalty, and then got rid of them. Trump is a tired old man baby.
Epstein described in private long before those memoirs and interviews emerged. One of the most striking emails comes from a New York Times journalist tipping Epstein off about a former NYPD detective digging into Epstein and potentially Trump as well. The journalist mentions questions about why Epstein hired Ken Starr. It's a moment that raises questions about access.
Our fourth estate has been broken, but this shouldn't shock anybody who has been saying that our media is complicit in condoning this predator shit. They make money off of these articles. They make money off of this nonsense, and they're owned by people who are probably on this list.
Information flow and who protected whom and why. Then another bombshell in November 2016, right after the election. Epstein emails to say he is in Trump Tower. Linda Stone asks if he's still in Paris. Epstein replies, "I'm in the Trump Tower." Trump has repeatedly insisted he hadn't spoken to Epstein in years. But this email suggests physical proximity far more recent than Trump has ever publicly acknowledged. Whether Epstein was exaggerating, visiting someone else, or telling a literal truth, the email exists, and that alone is enough to destabilize the carefully crafted narrative Trump has repeated for years. The messages between Epstein and Maxwell show a nuanced picture. Epstein notes that investigators have never mentioned Trump, despite a victim spending hours with him at Epstein's home. Maxwell acknowledges it. Again, this is the content of the email, not a legal determination, but it is part of the written record. More emails show Michael Wolff commenting on a victim at Mar-a-Lago, and Epstein claiming that Trump asked him to resign from Mar-a-Lago, even though Epstein says he was never a member. Epstein writes that Trump knew about the girls and asked Ghislaine to stop. Wolf speculates that Epstein could let Trump hang himself in public statements or support him later if it created a debt. It is a cynical transactional picture describing a relationship built not on friendship but leverage. Then Epstein writes simply, "I know how dirty Donald is." That line echoes through the inbox like a drumbeat. There are emails referring to the notorious birthday book joke about selling Trump a fully depreciated woman. The newly released messages go further, with Epstein reportedly boasting that he gave Trump his 20-year-old girlfriend secondhand after 2 years. The words are dehumanizing, disturbing, and deeply reflective of the way Epstein talked about women. Whether true, exaggerated, or intended as shock humor, the line sits in Epstein's email archive, and Trump world cannot erase it. There are emails suggesting Epstein was near Trump in 2017. Emails about Trump's deposition being scheduled for August 18, 2009. Emails showing Epstein receiving information about Trump and Melania in 2019. Emails showing Epstein's pilot tracking Trump's plane. Epstein positions himself repeatedly as someone observing Trump's movements, commenting on them, and sharing those comments with people in his circle. And then there is the recorded 2017 conversation, Epstein describing Trump's method for controlling his team by spreading conflicting stories, pitting advisors against each other, and ensuring no one trusts anyone else. Epstein talks about Trump telling Bannon one thing, Kellyanne another, Jamie Dimon another, and creating chaos on purpose. This matches what many former advisors later wrote in their memoirs. Trump thrives on infighting. Epstein's description matches their experiences almost too precisely. And then there's the real estate connection. Epstein references Trump purchasing the West Palm Beach property. Gossman lost in foreclosure a property Epstein wanted, and later selling it in 2008 to a Russian oligarch for $95 million, far above its valuation. Even back then, experts questioned the deal. Epstein's email suggests he saw it as suspicious. It connects yet another dot between Trump, Epstein's orbit, and Russian money. When you assemble everything, all 20,000 emails, all the overlapping conversations, all the names, all the timestamps, all the references, the picture becomes unavoidable. These emails do not represent a distant acquaintance. They reveal an ongoing pattern of commentary, observations,
circle of hell,
expectations, and connections between Epstein's world and Trump's world. It is not the picture Trump painted publicly. It is not the sanitized timeline he repeated in interviews, and it is absolutely not the version of events Trump's defenders want circulating today. Trump's inner circle is terrified not because of one email, but because of what the entire collection reveals. Epstein observed Trump up close for years. Epstein critiqued him, mocked him, tracked him, and sometimes advised people around him. Epstein portrayed himself as someone who understood Trump's weaknesses and tendencies. Epstein exchanged messages with journalists, politicians, lawyers, and global figures about Trump. The story is not one detail. It is the entire network. As you reach the end of the archive, the biggest question becomes obvious if these emails, the ones outside the sealed files, are already this explosive. What else is inside the unreleased material? We are anonymous. We do not forget. We do not forgive. And tonight we surface what was never meant to be seen. If you believe truth should not be buried, share this message. Tap subscribe. Help.
Agreed. If you're not following anonymous news and you think you're in the know because you watch MSNBC or CNN or even Fox Propaganda Channel, you're doing yourself a disservice, because it is taking independent voices to keep this truth to light. And I am not shocked that Epstein thought he knew Trump. It's not that hard to figure out a man-child like this. He has tried his best to portray himself as this strong guy, when all we've known is that he has a weakness for being a predator. He is literally on record saying he grabs women, he pushes himself on them, and they let you do whatever they want, whatever you want, because if you're famous or rich. This man has never hid who he was. It's just some people blindly follow him still because they think he is going to make America the America they may have grew up in when Jim Crow was a thing. He is regressive. And there are too many regressive-minded people that support him. But we're going to keep this going because Anonymous did not stop with the emails. There's just so much of this sordid nonsense that it's going to be a lot to keep up with. So I'm glad Anonymous has been keeping their foot on the necks of this nonsense.
We do not worship false idols. and we do not look away when truth finally catches the man who believed he could outrun it forever. Tonight we speak because
Trump couldn't
karma is
outrun
moving,
it in
and
other
it is
people's
moving
legs.
fast. It is circling a man who thought consequences were optional, a man who used chaos as a shield, lies as a weapon, and power as a hiding place. Tonight karma hits Donald Trump hard, and the world is watching. Look at what is unfolding across the globe.
Yep. Protests globally.
Venezuela is mobilizing its F-16 fleet, military units moving into position, full war posture.
And if you don't know why, it's because this doofus and Hedgegerf keep allowing unauthorized military strikes on innocent fishing vessels. He is going to try to wag the dog this. Now, if you don't know what that term means and you didn't see that movie back in the, I believe, late 90s, it is a presidential trick to utilize war to keep them in power. Trump understands that right now with the Epstein files, he is not a popular man. He is definitely just not. And because of that, he is going to do the one thing he thinks will save his presidency by doing these illegal strikes and putting us into war with Venezuela. We already know you have ties to a predator ring, Trump. Doing this is just going to make it worse on you. You're already committing human rights violations here and abroad.
Fox News scrambling to frame it as something manageable, while admitting the Venezuelan government is responding directly to the American naval buildup in the Caribbean, a region heating up because every international crisis explodes in the shadow of Trump's erratic legacy. Analysts warn the temperature is rising because no one trusts U.S. leadership anymore. That mistrust is not accidental. It is earned. In the Middle East, the so-called historic peace deal Trump bragged about has collapsed exactly the way real diplomats predicted it would. Israeli settlers storming towns in the West Bank, Hamas tightening control in Gaza, Palestinians dying by the hundreds, Netanyahu and Smotrich still refusing even the idea of a two-state solution. There is no ceasefire. There was never a deal. It was a press release masquerading as policy. Trump slapped his name on it and walked away while the region burned behind him. Now, Secretary of State Marco Rubio admits settler violence may spill over and destabilize everything. The IDF is dealing with settlers attacking their own soldiers. That is how unstable it is. Everything he claimed he fixed has shattered. Everything he branded as historic has collapsed under the weight of reality. But the center of gravity tonight is not foreign policy. It is the 20,000 Epstein emails released by House Oversight Democrats. Emails so revealing they have ripped the mask off the circles Trump operated in. These messages show a network of wealthy, powerful men trading access, information, influence, and silence. And in those messages in the middle of the rock, Donald Trump's name appears again and again. Jeffrey Epstein writes to Larry Summers, "I've met some very bad people, none as bad as Trump, not one decent cell in his body." Epstein, a predator, calling Trump the worst person he knew. That sentence alone could shatter an entire political world. But it is not alone. There are messages where Epstein hints Trump was present with victims. Messages describing Trump as the dog that didn't bark. Messages that imply leveraged silence secrets. And then there is the message that sent intelligence agencies into a full sprint. Epstein writes to former Norwegian Prime Minister Thorbjorn Jagland, recommending that Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov receive insight by speaking with Epstein. Jagland replies that he will meet Lavrov's assistant and suggest it. Epstein responds he must be seen to get something. It's that simple. That reads like coordination, like political leverage, like Epstein positioning himself as a conduit of compromising information. And this communication happens just weeks before Trump meets Putin in Helsinki. And at Helsinki, Trump stands on stage beside Putin with the world holding its breath and tells everyone that he believes Putin over his own intelligence agencies. "I don't see any reason why it would be Russia," he says. Putin was strong and powerful in his denial.
My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why.
Yes, because a dictator who's literally causing a war against innocent people saying they're innocent makes total sense. It's not like he's going to lie about it, right? Ridiculous. Fucking ridiculous. Exactly, Red Baron. The thing I notice about Trump is that his usual allure globally is very demonic in nature, and the way people scramble to get in line and sell their souls is crazy. It's because of this cabal of predators. There is dirt on so many people, including Trump, and this is how they play. And I know it's hard for most people to understand how these people operate, but once they get something on you, that's it, you got. And they can use that as leverage against a fucking sitting POTUS. Say what you want about other presidents. I don't even think George W. Bush had this kind of nonsense on his head. But we won't know until those files release. And then God, Miss Grijalva, with the 218th signature on releasing those files, has done so. And now maybe we'll see something released about this because it's getting annoying really fast.
It would be. So I have great confidence in my intelligence people.
Bullshit.
But I will tell you that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial.
That moment now reads differently. That clip now sits beside the Epstein emails like two puzzle pieces snapping tightly together. This is karma. Not dramatic, not explosive, just painfully factual. Emails, receipts, timelines, patterns. Trump feels it closing in. His posts prove it. He claims Democrats are reviving the Epstein hoax to distract from the shutdown. He tells Republicans not to deflect, even though he deflects every waking minute. He blames Democrats for $1.5 trillion in costs that experts tie directly to his own shutdown strategy. He rants that his followers must ignore Epstein, but they won't, because they can't, because the truth is louder than his all-cap screams.
But the sad thing is there are still some trying to twist themselves into defending this evil. People like Megyn Kelly, once again, that said there are 15-year-olds that don't look 15. Now, I remember Miss Kelly going off about the war on Christmas and being a proud mother. I can't imagine what their kids are going to think seeing their mom defending a fucking child predator by saying some 15-year-olds don't look like children. Freaking nasty, man. Just nasty.
And now the mega fracture. The once unbreakable cult is splintering. Followers posting that they're done with him, calling him a traitor, a liar, a fraud, a man who sold them out. They rage because he said Chinese students are better than American students. They rage because he says America needs foreign workers because Americans aren't skilled.
They rage because they're bigots. I watched a thing earlier today on Blue Sky where somebody was interviewing the couch fucker who had the nerve to say, well, there are some American people who really don't want neighbors that don't speak the same language as them. And I went off on a tangent on why is it such a proud American thing to not know a different language? Why are there so many people that think our cobbled English? Because need I remind you, as somebody who's been studying German for years, we took liberty with a lot of German words to formulate our supposed broken English words. You should be ashamed of yourself if you are sitting in America, which is supposed to have a high education system, which we all know is a lie, and still refuse to learn more than the English language because of your bigotry. But there are a lot of Americans like that.
They rage because he insults the very people who worshipped him. He told them for years they were the smartest, strongest, most loyal. But the moment he needed to justify H-1B visas, he said Americans are not competent, not smart enough, not capable of high-skilled work. And the cult cracked. Mega influencers scrambled to glue it back together. Dinesh D'Souza insisting Trump doesn't need us as much as we need him. Steve Bannon calling Trump an imperfect instrument infused with divine providence. Divine providence. It is not politics. It is worship. It is desperation. Then Caroline Levitt tries to convince everyone inflation data may never return and cites DoorDash instead of the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Of course, because they know that the October inflation data, along with the job report, paints us in bleak times. If you have a job right now, you better hold on to it and hope they don't try to phase you out or cut your hours to unlivable standards. New jobs are not out there. He has eroded trust in both agriculture, industry, and basic labor jobs. People who are afraid to even try to go and construct, because even if they're legalized citizens, they're being grabbed up by domestic terrorists who mace 1-year-olds. We are in dire times, and it was so fucking unnecessary. And some voters, which I'm going to get to on Tuesday because your asses need to be called out again, are sitting there debating whether a guy with a Nazi tattoo is really so bad. I'm over it. That's why I had to come back. That's why I said, as much as I enjoy protecting my peace and just focusing on 3D model projects, some of you fuckers need to be dragged for the life that you don't have.
Statistics. She claims Democrats destroyed economic data forever.
She's a liar.
Economists, investors, and policymakers at the Federal Reserve to receive critical government data.
If I could put Pinocchio syndrome on one person, it would be this bitch right here. Because she can, with rapid fire lies, try to paint the Democrats as getting rid of the data that the Trump administration are in charge of. We were able to release data last year under President Biden, so why not this year? I'll tell you why. Because people like Trump don't want you to see the failures. He doesn't want you to see the numbers. He still wants you to believe the lie that he's making things great again, and some of you are still gullible enough to believe this nonsense.
Democrats may have permanently damaged the federal statistical system with October CPI
You're a
and jobs
liar.
reports likely never being released. And
Liar.
all of that economic data released will be permanently impaired, leaving our policymakers at the Fed flying blind at a critical period.
Meanwhile, the DoorDash
Wow.
report she cites shows rising food prices. Americans do not need DoorDash or BLS to know prices are high. They see it every day.
We go
Trump
shopping.
claiming Thanksgiving was 25% cheaper is a joke living inside a
Lies.
delusion. Then comes the chaos of the
I'll tell you that because I grew up with Great Depression grandparents, that they always had us plan ahead of time. As soon as stuff like a turkey and other things were released at the markets, and we get them pretty regularly up here in farm country, but soon as it was, I got our turkey, had it in the deep freezer in October for Thanksgiving. But this year, it's not going to be like pictures and stuff all throughout social media, because I know there's still going to be families that struggle to afford the shit this year. Even with the shutdown ended and SNAP supposedly being funded again, there are going to be families afraid of this administration targeting them again to worry about having full spreads for Thanksgiving. Honestly speaking, we are in dark times that didn't have to be like this. We are in unnecessary times that did not have to be like this. And yet some people still want to say, nope, he's making America great again, with no proof. But several things that point to the fact that not only is he not making things great, he is fundamentally breaking every norm. But some of you really want to go around calling people racial slurs, because you can't convince me now that that's not what MAGA's top priority is. A weird, Christo-fascist state full of white nationalists telling you that your mediocrity is pretty much everybody else's fault but your own.
continuing resolution Trump signs. A resolution that strips health care from 20 million Americans, but gives Republican senators the ability to sue the government and personally pocket $1 million each because their phone numbers were included in a subpoena, not wiretapped.
Insane.
Not listened to, just listed. Trump is perfectly comfortable destroying health care, but never comfortable missing a chance to shove taxpayer money into the pockets of his allies. Then he claims gas is $2.50, will soon hit $2.00, and calls it a massive tax cut.
The federal
I don't know
government
what
will
he's
now
talking
resume
about.
normal operations.
We live in a farm town, y'all. My husband goes to work almost every day, and he ain't seen no $2 gas prices. I work from home, so I don't have to worry about that. But the fact that he goes out, fills our car up, and has not seen these magical $2 gas prices that this bum keeps lying about, I'm apt to believe the person who fills up our tank over this doddering man who's never probably held a true pump in his life.
And my administration and our partners in Congress will continue our work to lower the cost of living,
You
restore
stay on a
public
golf
safety,
course.
grow
You
our
talking about
economy,
work.
and make America affordable again for all Americans again.
I'm not shocked by that, Red Baron. He lies so much. We here in Michigan I have not seen $2 gas prices that he keeps talking about. We had a 3 cent fluctuation the other day, but it is still in the threes. So I don't know what he's going on about. It's really driving me nuts that he can lie so boldly when the truth is in the face of everybody who fills up their cars. Like, I don't know. Feels like the upside down.
Costs are way down. Energy is way down.
Lies.
Gasoline is at $2.
Before he starts that $2 thing, I pay the electric bill every month. It's one of the bills that we have split 50-50 because I keep reminding people marriage is a 50-50 prospect. And even though I barely run stuff here outside my work and the printer, which you might hear in the background, because it's a holiday print off, I've got giveaways to start, I've got holiday boxes to get out to both Guild and to family and friends, and I'm doing a box for my friend's shop to give away to needy family of prints. It is a busy time for a lot of us, and we can tell you the cost of stuff, including utility, even not running most stuff during the day. My electric bill has been higher than the average in 2 years. And I keep track of this because budget is my love language.
$4.50 a gallon versus $4.70 for the Democrats. And we think we're going to hit pretty close to $2 a gallon. That's like
a liar,
really massive tax cut. It's the equivalent of that.
Lies that collapse when anyone steps outside their home. Lies that evaporate the moment someone fills a tank.
Yep.
Lies told by someone who lives in a golden ballroom, not in the real world where bills arrive and wages stagnate.
Yep.
And then the most reckless lie of all. We're going to get rid of insurance entirely. We'll give people $2,000 and they'll buy their own health care.
And we're willing to pay.
I said this on Spoutable, and I said this on Blue Sky. The whole idea of him giving $2,000, which is a pittance compared to the billions he is now embezzled. I'm calling it embezzlement at this point. Because he has money to give to Argentina, but nothing to keep people on decent health insurance. And my thing is, $2,000 is like, you got a piggy bank that you've worked hard for. You saved a $500, and then Trump comes in, takes money out of your jar, leaves you $50 and says, there you go, I'm giving you a rebate. Do what you will with the $50. Don't mind that I've taken $450 of yours, because I'm going to do big things with it. And who cares if you can't afford health insurance with $2,000? My current health insurance premiums is triple that. And it covers emergency room visits. I don't know if it covers dental yet. They've been calling me. I've got to see what I have to do. I really hate talking to those agents for my coverage. The thing is, even with that, you still have out-of-pocket costs for medicine and anything not covered by your insurance policy, which is a lot. And I think it's crazy to me that he thinks giving somebody $2,000 of their own taxpayer money back to cover health insurance that is way more expensive than that shows how out of touch Donald Trump is. It's ridiculous.
So much money to the people. So we're going to pay a lot of money to the people. They're going to go out
$2,000 is
and
not a
buy
lot of
their
money.
own health care. And we're going to forget this Obamacare madness.
That is not a policy.
Stupid.
That is not a plan.
Stupid.
That is a tantrum scribbled into a
stupid, though.
microphone. It ignores medical reality, emergency reality, pre-existing conditions, chronic illness, cancer accidents. It is ignorance packaged as revolution. It is dangerous. Then Colombia's President Petro steps into the global spotlight and makes one of the boldest statements of the year. He says the Epstein files are linked to an international power structure. He says America's pedo ring is provoking conflict to distract from child trafficking cover-ups. He connects U.S. geopolitical pressure to the desperation of those trying to bury the list. He says armored vehicles are being sent to kill fishermen. He calls out corruption directly.
de pedófilos quiere. A clan of pedophiles wants to end democracy in Colombia. Harsh, yes, but that's the reality. And so that the list doesn't come out, they send us armored vehicles to kill fishermen from the city and threaten the neighbor, whether dictator or not. How is it that the people of Colombia are going to applaud invading their brother, which is not the president, but the people of Venezuela?
Loudly, fearlessly, and suddenly conversations that
he is going to unite South America against us. And it's crazy to me. All except for fucking Argentina, who he gave $40 billion to, for now.
To live only in whisper.
Exactly, Red Baron. And that is so true. And thank you for voting as well. 2K wouldn't pay off the loan that I still have for my car. Then insurance is supposed to come up. So, yeah. Insurance alone on our vehicles. Because we have one that we use, and then one that we use to haul stuff that rarely leaves the garage, but you have to have insurance on that too. And I don't think people realize that everything's gone up, yet wages are stagnant across the board. Hours are crazy, especially if you got to put in things like availability. I made sure my availability gave me certain days off. And I feel like there are a lot of people who don't understand stuff like that. And even if you can be there a lot of hours, a lot of people on payroll duties are saying that they have to cut hours to even employees they know will show up because they don't have the money for this. And everybody who's banking on Black Friday, not realizing a lot of us are boycotting, you're going to get a harsh awakening to the power of people who are over this shit. Don't nobody have extra money to waste on your weird Black Friday sales when we know a lot of you big stores, including you, Mr. Bezos, are in the pockets of this corruption. Oh, there we go.
Are happening in public from heads of state. Meanwhile, Adelita Gralva is finally sworn in after being blocked for 50 days by Trump's allies. She stands before the country and talks about how over 800,000 Arizonans were denied basic services because one man wanted to punish a district politically.
50 days that over 800,000 Arizonans have been left without access to the basic services that every constituent deserves.
Yep.
This is an abuse of power.
Exactly.
One individual should not be able to unilaterally obstruct the swearing in of a duly elected member of Congress for political reasons.
Exactly, Mike Johnson.
She calls it an abuse of power. She calls out Trump directly. She declares that no single individual should have the ability to obstruct a duly elected representative. Her voice carries because it comes from lived injustice. Everything connects. Venezuela, Gaza, the West Bank, MAGA collapsing, the Epstein emails, the Compromat trails, the healthcare chaos, the economic lies, the cult panic, the global instability, the rising authoritarianism, and the one name sitting at the center like a spider at the middle of its web is Donald J. Trump. This is what happens when a man lies for decades, when he manipulates institutions until they break, when he bends people until they snap, when he treats the world as his stage and the truth as his enemy. Eventually, everything he built comes crashing down on top of him. We are anonymous. We do not bow. We do not hide. And we do not let the powerful rewrite the truth they tried so hard to bury.
Exactly. We've got one more before I wrap this up because Anonymous is not staying off this administration for their nonsense. And I am glad she got sworn in, and I'm glad she made sure to remind people that he could have swore her in even when Congress wasn't in session. He was being petty, he was being vindictive, and he was covering for that cabal of predators. And the predator-in-chief that holds sway over him for some reason. This is supposed to be a God-fearing Christian man who literally is holding water for predators. And I can't wait because he's being not only primary next year, though I really don't see a GOP really getting that slot. I cannot wait to see who runs against him. I am going to continuously advertise for that person because Mike Johnson needs to go. He needed to go like yesterday.
We do not worship false idols. We do not bend to men who mistake chaos for strength. We follow the money. We expose the lies. And tonight, we reveal the moment Donald Trump smashed the panic button and spiraled into a full collapse that even his most loyal defenders can no longer deny. What you are about to hear is not speculation or spin. It is the financial, political, and psychological unraveling of a man who built his mythology on the illusion of power and the fantasy of economic genius. And now that illusion is crumbling faster than he can scream into a microphone. Trump's administration is completely off the rails. At a time when stability is needed most, he is throwing out desperate ideas like confetti.
I just have to ask, though, whoever thought his stuff was on the rails? His whole thing has been concentrated chaos since the beginning. And the only people who seem to keep eating up that he's some kind of stable genius, his words, definitely not mine, are his loyal. And those people can't be trusted because they don't make good life choices. They would rather back this bigot than to use their own eyes and brains to see that he's bad for business. I'm just saying.
Hoping one of them sticks long enough to distract people from the economic storm he helped create. Max from UNFR broke down the data, but when you zoom out and see the full landscape, the picture becomes even darker. The private credit markets look like 2007 all over again. The treasury is swollen with
And for those who don't get the 2007 reference, in late 2007, early 2008, we had a complete crash of both financial institutions, big banks, and the housing market. They called it the housing market bubble bursting because a lot of Fannie Mae type loans went out. A lot of people defaulted on said loans, and it was a financial nightmare. At that time, I was still going through school because I put myself back in school to take care of my then young child. And all over the news was the housing crisis, the economic bubble bursting, what is going to happen. Employment was down. Housing was almost near impossible. People were losing their homes to foreclosures because of predatory lenders. And now we are going to see that. And that's why I gave that advice on social media. If you have a strong enough friend group and you work steady jobs and you have money that you can compile to buy houses together and do a share house, now is the time before his ridiculous 50-year fixed term nonsense comes about and he ruins the chance of any young people getting a mortgage or getting a house here in America. Like I said, my hubby and I, we got lucky. We bought our house almost 3 years ago in November this year under the Biden-Harris administration, who, mind you, would have given us a $25,000 new homeowner credit had we just voted for the lady who actually had an economic background. But instead, we got this asshole doing this weird 50-year loan thing because he knows the only people who benefit from that are people with the slush money to buy up properties and become renters. We are in desperate, dire times because people don't understand basic civics, basic economics, or have a shred of basic decency.
Unpaid obligations that will vanish the moment the government actually reopens. The Federal Reserve has lost control of overnight borrowing rates, and global investors are slowly pulling back from the United States. Because the president keeps lighting economic fires and then bragging about the smoke. This is Trump's trademark move. A disciplined lack of discipline, a talent for sabotaging every system he touches, and then pretending the explosion was part of the strategy. But this time, his chaos has collided with reality. SOFR, the secured overnight financing rate, has blown past the Federal Reserve's ceiling. That is not normal. That is not stable. That is the financial equivalent of an air raid siren. When SOFR rises above the Fed's target, it means lenders think the economy is far riskier than Trump claims.
I was about to say that because some people don't understand financial terms. So I'll repeat what Anonymous just said. When the rates go up like that, it is because a lack of belief or faith that the economy will stabilize under this regime. It means that anything from lending to basic trading is at risk right now. So somebody like me who, I don't have a diverse stock portfolio. I have a little thing that I started years ago that I was hoping to either have as a nest egg when I'm ready to fully retire or to pass down to my son. And because of this unstable administration, that may not be the case. Because we couldn't vote for people who had economic ties and financial backgrounds. We had to vote in this disgusting chaos. And now it is costing those of us who have the wherewithal to know how to invest our money panicked because we're at risk. He is destabilizing every financial foundation this country has stood on for decades, if not almost over a century.
Claims. It means the market does not trust him. It means the cost of capital is rising when it should be falling. And it means the cracks in the private credit world are turning into fractures. Those fractures became undeniable when Renovo, a nationwide home renovation company backed 100% by BlackRock, collapsed into bankruptcy.
Countless customers and employees are caught in the fallout of a sudden bankruptcy filing by a home renovation company that's actually backed by one of the world's largest investment firms.
Their books revealed something stunning: between $100 and $500 million in liabilities and less than $100,000 in assets. Completely upside down.
This is why, as a bookkeeper, I've always said paper trails are so important. Because if you follow the money, you'll see corruption. One of the things I did before I left my corporate job years ago was found over $250,000 that was almost set to be laundered. It was hidden, and because I dot my I's, cross my T's, I found the discrepancy that led to finding that money. And it was crazy that people could get away for that long trying to coast and hide certain things. But it's not shocking to me that some of these fucking businesses, they inflate their numbers, they act like their business is doing better than what it is, and then when the chips fall, they have to fold and people are out of jobs, investors are out of their money, and we're going to see a lot more of this under Trump's regime. A lot of people, due to his financial instability, having to come clean about them being literal criminals.
Completely hollow, and every penny of debt owed to BlackRock. If the world's largest asset manager can take a $150 million hit on one company, imagine what is happening across the rest of the economy.
Yep.
This is the beginning of the cockroach effect Jamie Dimon warned about. One bankruptcy means more are hiding in the walls.
Yep.
This was already bad enough, but then came Trump's panic proposals. A $2,000 tariff dividend for every American, sending Affordable Care Act subsidies directly to individuals. A 50-year mortgage plan. These are not policies. They are distress flares fired into the sky by a man who can feel his political oxygen thinning.
Exactly. And I don't blame you. A lot of people have been saying that. Pull cash out of the bank and have some readily on hand. But what I've been doing since November of last year is through online services like PayPal, you can convert money from the US dollar to a foreign currency of your choice. It's fairly cheap. I've been investing in racking up Canadian loonies because pretty soon their dollar is going to be worth way more than our dollar, especially with Carney's 10-year plan to secure not only deals across the board, both agricultural and industrial, but Canada is really looking like the place that is going to be on top of the U.S. North American market for everybody to trust, trade with, because they tend not to elect assholes like Donald Trump to lead them.
When George Stephanopoulos confronted Scott Bessant with the $2,000 plan, Bessant's face nearly melted. His mouth quivered. His eyes panicked.
Do you have a formal proposal to give a $2,000 dividend to every American?
No.
I haven't spoken to the president about this yet, but it could, the $2,000 dividend could come in lots of forms, in lots of ways.
He said it was going to come in money. How come you're not saying it's going to come in money? Because you know it's not feasibly possible for this to do. And you know that he threw you under the bus to try to explain his ridiculous plan that he cannot feasibly launch. They don't have the money for this right now. They have the money for a golden ballroom, a great Gatsby party, but they definitely do not have the funds to give every American citizen $2,000, which they owe us a lot more. Point blank, period.
George, it could be just the tax decreases that we are seeing on the president's agenda.
Nobody wants those tax decreases because it does not affect the working class or the dwindling middle class. The only people who are getting tax decreases and tax breaks are people who are wealthy. Let's get that right, Mr. $600 million man who calls yourself a soybean farmer.
No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, deductibility.
Which will destroy Social Security, which will destroy people who work on tips. Because if you think people who own restaurants don't pay people enough as it is, when this idiot says, okay, no more tax on tips, you're going to see an increase wage decrease for waitresses and waiters and service staff. And you're going to see greedy assholes who don't want to tip people as it is say, well, there's no tax on tip, so I'll give you a less percentage, even though you're working your ass off. It is not fundamentally feasible to take the taxes off of these things. Yet because he relies on people being so fucking financially illiterate, they'll go for it. Even as it's going to cause more economic instability.
Of auto loans. So, those are substantial deductions.
I'm so glad our car is
are being
paid off.
financed in the tax
We
bill.
need
He
a
had
new
no
one, but
idea
there's
what
no
Trump
way.
was talking about because there is no plan. Trump just invents ideas on stage and expects his staff to improvise explanations later. And even if
Exactly.
such a plan existed, it would instantly drain the Treasury General account, a balance that appears high only because the government has been shut down and bills have gone unpaid.
Yep.
The moment back pay and
Which is
obligations are sent out, that money will
MO.
evaporate. If Trump sent checks to every American, inflation would skyrocket overnight. We
Yep.
already learned during COVID that stimulus does not remain in the pockets of ordinary people. Corporations raise prices and extract every dollar. 40% of the inflation spike under Biden came from corporate price gouging. The pattern
Yep.
is predictable. Trump pretending otherwise is not leadership, it is delusion. His second bright idea, redirecting ACA subsidies directly into people's hands, is no different. It would gut the insurance exchanges, raise premiums, leave millions uninsured, and once again trigger inflation because people would use the cash on food debt and survival instead of premiums. Corporations would sense disposable income and immediately raise prices. Trump knows this. His advisors know this. But he is desperate to look like a populist savior while destroying the very systems designed to keep people afloat. Then there is the 50-year mortgage plan. This one he might actually try to implement, but it is still a scam. If the average first-time home buyer is 40 years old, a 50-year mortgage means paying off the home at 90. And because mortgage interest is front-loaded, buyers would not even touch the principal for up to 20 years. This is a gift to banks and a trap for families.
Exactly. Our current mortgage, because we didn't just buy a house, we have a 5-acre plot of land, is at a fixed 30-year rate. We pay far less each month than we did renting. And the way we're paying it, we plan to try to have everything paid off in 10 years. Because in our 40s, which both my husband and I are, we don't want to be in our complete golden years before our home is paid off. So we have been structurally making sure that each extra payment we put on leads to our house being paid off way before the 30-year mark. A 50-year mark is ridiculous. Who the fuck wants to even be here 50 years? I'm not just being fatalistic. I'm being honest. I do not want to worry about paying off a house in 50 years. That's insanity. But they really bank on stupid people who think they can get over on this. And it's just going to open up the floodgate to predatory lenders who can take your house for any reason. It is sick.
Families, sellers would raise prices instantly because monthly payments would drop. Housing would inflate. Wealth inequality would accelerate.
Yep.
Trump calls it innovative. It is
It's not.
predatory.
It is.
While all of this unfolds,
Predatory.
Trump is losing independence at record speed. Democrats never approved of him, but independents once tolerated him. Now they are
Independents
leaving.
are annoying
Meanwhile,
anyway.
Republicans still support him at 89%, but even that loyalty is brittle. They cheer him, but they do not trust him. They adore him, but they do not believe him. They cling to him because their identity depends on it. But
Yep.
Trump can hear the shift. He feels the silence between the cheers. That is why he is raging, posting incoherent late-night rants, attacking the media, attacking judges, attacking allies, attacking anyone he can because he knows he is slipping, and the markets know it too. Investors are pulling away from long-term treasuries because they do not trust Trump's fiscal direction. Yields remain stubbornly high. The Fed cannot stabilize borrowing costs. Global partners are rethinking American reliability. The Treasury's rainy day repo facility, created after the great financial crisis to protect markets in emergencies, has been drained to prop up auctions. This is what governments do when they are running on fumes. No amount of screaming at rallies can reverse these fundamentals. Trump cannot bully interest rates. He cannot intimidate debt markets. He cannot sue the bond market. He cannot tweet his way out of recession. He cannot charm global investors. The forces closing in on him are mathematical, structural, and indifferent to his theatrics. Yep. And that is why he is panicking. That is why he is spiraling. That is why he is throwing out carnival ideas and praying the crowd cheers loudly enough to drown out the sound of collapse. But the numbers do not lie. The markets do not lie. His advisors' faces do not lie. The quiver in Scott Bessant's voice does not lie. The Sophia spike does not lie. The bankruptcy filings do not lie. The Treasury outflows do not lie. The loss of independence does not lie. The boos at rallies do not lie. Trump is in a free fall and he knows it. This is the death spiral. A president who does not understand economics. A financial system flashing red. A treasury about to drain. Private credit collapsing. Inflation stalking the door. Investors retreating. The public losing faith. Corporate America preparing for impact. And Trump standing at the center of the storm, screaming that everything is great, while the walls crumble around him. He cannot stop what is coming. And the louder he yells, the clearer it becomes that he is terrified of what happens next. Yep. We are anonymous. We do not turn away from the truth. Share this message. Amplify it. Let the truth echo louder than the panic. And if you believe in independent voices exposing what they hide, tap subscribe, share this video, and help us keep the light shining where they never want light to reach. We are anonymous. We will continue. We do not look away.
Exactly.
We are anonymous. We do not.
And thank you once again, Anonymous, for helping me highlight all the stuff people are doing to try to distract, not only from the predator cabal, but from the fact that this man is literally destabilizing our country, both socially, economically, and just, there's no morality left in America at this point. When I literally see grown folks condemning victims, saying that a 15-year-old looks adult enough to justify being trafficked. When I'm seeing a fucking trafficker who should be sitting in jail, getting the kiddie table treatment, pampered, when she literally abused and trafficked children. When I see people literally arguing on social media what a minor is, because they want to play that kind of game. We are in sick fucking times. And too many people want to play those kind of games, and we cannot keep allowing this to be the norm. I'm going to get ready to wrap this up. I am shooting for a YouTube stream tomorrow, but we do have to go into town in the afternoon, so it all depends. It's like I said, though, I am over this topic. At first, I didn't even care about the Epstein files being released. Honestly, with all the awful Trump keeps doing, I was at the point of, I just want people to keep focused on what he's doing in the White House. But now that we have seen those 2,000 emails, I really just hope the truth comes out so that we can get justice for the victims of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and all the people who participated in this predator ring. I'm going to get ready to wrap this up. Red Baron, thank you so much. And I agree. Megyn Kelly needs to be thrown into the sun. And she's just disgusting. She's a disgusting person who I'm not shocked that Miss, there's a war on Christmas, who's literally bending to defend the man who called her nasty, who asked her if she was on the rag when she officiated the Republican debates back during his first run. But now she is literally on the record saying that 15-year-olds don't look like children. That's your legacy, Megyn. A predator protector. And I'm going to remind you of that every time you post something on social media or beyond. You're disgusting. But either way, I am going to wrap this up. Thank you for sitting in, Red Baron. I will see you on Tuesday if you can make it, or on Friday if you can make it. Like I said, I want to start the YouTube stuff because I want to do the giveaways. I've got a whole phase 1 group of Gorillas prints whether people want to paint it or they want to paint them themselves to start the giveaway with. I have a lot going on though, so I'm still trying to balance the offline life with the online life. And until I get it perfect, I'm going to choose offline life as my main priority. But I will be back some point next week, probably on Sunday. For those of you who watch the D&D stream, it's a lot of fun. I'm going to start playing music now because I don't upload them to YouTube. So it's just me having fun, playing some music while doing dungeon and adventures with my guild. Either way, no Minnesota goodbye. I will see you all next week. Thank you for tuning in.